Not be completely familiar with Katchatheevu, the whole problem. So let me first explain what the issue is, and then I want to tell you today what has really transpired, which has created the issue, and why that issue is today relevant to all of us. Why are we debating it today? In 1974, India and Sri Lanka, in June 1974, concluded an agreement where they drew their maritime boundary. And in drawing the maritime boundary, Katchatheevu was put on the Sri Lankan side of the boundary. This agreement of 1974 had three other clauses. One clause which said that each country shall have sovereignty and exclusive jurisdiction and control over the waters. The second clause, Article 5, it gave to Indian fishermen that they will continue to access Katchatheevu as hitherto and will not be required to obtain travel documents. And the third one, that the vessels of India and Sri Lanka will enjoy in each other's waters such rights that they have traditionally enjoyed. So this was the agreement which was reached in 1974 in June. Now, when this agreement was presented before Parliament, the then Foreign Minister, Shri Swaran Singh ji, he actually assured the Parliament, and I am reading his words, I feel confident that the agreement demarcating the maritime boundary in the Pork Bay will be considered as fair, just and equitable to both countries. At the same time, I wish to remind the honourable members that in concluding this agreement, the rights of fishing, please note, the rights of fishing, pilgrimage and navigation, which both sides have enjoyed in the past, have been fully safeguarded for the future. This was the assurance that the then Foreign Minister, Shri Swaran Singh ji, gave in Parliament at that time. 1974, July 23, 1974. Now, in less than 2 years, actually, there was another agreement between India and Sri Lanka through an exchange of letters. And in this agreement, now, India proposed the following. Again, I am reading to you from the original document. With the establishment of the exclusive economic zones by the two countries, India and Sri Lanka will exercise sovereign rights over the living and non-living resources of their respective zone. The fishing vessels and fishermen of India shall not engage in fishing in the historic waters, the territorial sea and the exclusive zone of Sri Lanka. So, 1974 assurance is given. By 1976, an agreement is concluded which actually gives away this assurance. Now, once this agreement in 1976 was concluded, there then evolved a position, a standard position you can say, of the government on this matter. And I am reading to you an example. This is from 2006. It is a question which is answered by the then Minister E. Ahmed on the floor of the Parliament. And he says, Mr. Ahmed, the 1974 agreement on the demarcation of the international maritime boundary line between India and Sri Lanka, as also the exchange of letters of 1976 on this issue of fishing rights, stipulate that the fishing vessels and fishermen of India shall not engage in fishing in the historic waters, territorial seas and the EEZ of Sri Lanka. So this is now the position which is taken by the government as a regular position. I am only giving you one example from 2006. So what has happened? What has been the consequence of this? In the last 20 years, 6,184 Indian fishermen have been detained by Sri Lanka. 6,184. And in the same period, 1,175 fishing vessels, Indian fishing vessels, have been seized detained, apprehended by the Sri Lankans. So this is really today the background. This is the issue that we are discussing. Now you can ask, why are we discussing it? And the answer is, in the last 5 years, in the Parliament, in the Consultative Committee, we have repeatedly, this issue, Katchatheevu issue and the fishermen's issue, has been repeatedly raised by various parties, by all parties, I would say. As I mentioned, in Parliament it has come up as Parliament question, it has come up in debates, it has been raised in the Consultative Committee, and in fact, Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu has written to me numerous times, and my record shows that to the current Chief Minister, I have myself replied 21 times on this issue. So please understand, this is not an issue which has suddenly surfaced. This is a live issue. It is an issue which has been very much debated in Parliament, in Tamil Nadu circles as well. It has been the subject of correspondence between the union government and the state government. And as I said, 21 times I have myself replied to letters. Now, every political party in Tamil Nadu has taken a position on this. And here, one of the reasons why we are debating it is, in looking at these two issues, the Katchatheevu issue and the fishermen issue, two parties, the Congress and the DMK, have approached this matter as though they have no responsibility for it, as though the situation is for central government, today's central government, for them to resolve. There is no history to this. This has just happened. They are the people who are taking up the cause. That is the way they would like to project it. So the purpose of the press conference today, why I am talking to all of you, is we believe that the public has a right to know. The public has a right to know, how did this situation come about? How was Katchatheevu, how was the 1974 agreement reached? How was Katchatheevu given away? How was the fishing issue handled? Because please understand, the fishing issue actually emanated from a 1976 agreement. So there are two agreements we are talking about. So because these have been live issues, because they have been discussed earlier also in Parliament, two documents were sought from us as an RTI request. And these were provided. One was a document about Ministry of External Affairs, summary background note for the meeting of the Informal Consultative Committee in 1968 on this issue. And the second was a record of discussion of a meeting between the then Foreign Secretary and the then Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Honorable Kalaignar Karunanidhi, in June 1974. Now, the point today is, we know there are two agreements. We know there is a 1974 agreement. We know there is a 1976 agreement. We know who did this. How has the situation arisen? What we do not know is who hid this, who has been party to it, what has been concealed from the public, and we believe it is the right of the public today to know how did this situation come about. Now, with regard to the Katchatheevu issue itself, there have been claims and counterclaims. India had its arguments. Sri Lanka had its arguments. In fact, in one of the two documents, both documents actually, but one has more detail than the other, these claims have been spelt out in some detail. India's claim is mainly that the Katchatheevu island belonged to the Raja of Ramnath, and that he had it from the time that East India Company assigned it to him. It was part of his zamindari rights, and these rights also included fishery, and also that later on these rights moved from the Raja of Ramnath to the Madras government. A second argument was that during after independence, for many years, Indian customs regularly went to Katchatheevu, and this was not obstructed. And the Indian view also was that there was absence of any documentary evidence to show that Sri Lanka had an original title to Katchatheevu. So these were largely the Indian arguments. The Sri Lankan argument, which also this document, which has been obtained under RTI, has released, was that according to them, they have records which go back to the 17th century, and that they also feel there were some conferences where which looked at their claim in a more positive manner. This is their claim. Now, what actually happened on Katchatheevu was, after both India and Sri Lanka became independent, there were issues between the military of the two countries about using this island. And that's how this issue actually came up as an issue between the governments. And from the 1960s, this issue picked up, and it was particularly discussed. There were many discussions, but I think the most important one was a discussion in 1974, few months before the Katchatheevu agreement was done, when the then Sri Lankan Prime Minister, Sirimavo Bandaranaike, came and met Indira Gandhi ji, who was then Prime Minister of India. So this broadly is the issue. These are the claims. But as I said, we know who did it. We are today looking and discussing who hid it. Now, in all of this, whenever there is a territorial dispute, it is natural that there is a request. You take a legal view of what is the claim. So at this time, the legal view was actually originally sought from the then Attorney General of India, Shri M.C. Setalvad. Many of you would be familiar. He was a very famous person. He was a legal luminary. Now, it's very interesting. Shri Setalvad gave his legal opinion as the Attorney General in 1958. In that opinion, he says, the matter, and I'm reading from it, the matter is by no means clear or free from difficulty, but on the assessment of the whole evidence, it appears to me that the balance lies in favor of concluding that the sovereignty of the island was and is in India. So this is the opinion of the then Attorney General. In fact, he not only mentions that, he also says, because please note, he says that the matter is by no means clear. He says whatever is agreed, it can also be limited by custom or treaty, and therefore Mr. Setalvad suggests that it may be possible for India to contend that there exists a right by custom in the Indian fishermen to fish in the territorial waters of the island. So essentially, the Attorney General is saying that the balance is something which goes in favor of India. But even if it doesn't, there is still a case. There is still a case to insist on fishing rights, access of Indian fishermen to the waters of this island. Now, interestingly, other than the Attorney General, the Ministry of External Affairs also has a legal department. So we had a gentleman there at that time called Dr. K. Krishna Rao. He was a very eminent person dealing with international law. And Mr. K. Krishna Rao also takes a very interesting view. He says, I am not suggesting that we have no case at all, but I submit that our legal case in this connection may be used to obtain fishing rights around the island. So, what we have essentially is, you have the main legal people, and please bear in mind, we are talking 1958 and 1960. The main people actually saying, look, we have a case, it may not be a 100% case, we don't know where this case may go, but at least we should insist minimum that we should get fishing rights. And as I told you at the beginning, the island was also given away in 1974, and the fishing rights were also given away in 76. And whether in 74 itself was there any sincere effort to press for fishing rights, I think I'll leave it to you to conclude, because 1976 shows otherwise. Now, if this is the situation, you will ask, how did this happen? Now, how did this happen has many aspects to it. One, and perhaps to me the most basic, I would say recurring one, is actually the indifference shown by the central government, by the prime ministers of the day then, about the territory of India. That fact is, they simply did not care. And to demonstrate that, I think if one looks at, again, this is there in one of the documents of the released under RTI. This is an observation by the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru in May of 1961. He says, he writes, I attach no importance at all to this little island, and I would have no hesitation in giving up our claim to it. I do not like matters like this pending indefinitely and being raised again and again in Parliament. So, to Pandit Nehru, this was a little island. It had no importance. He saw it as a nuisance. Why are people bringing it up again and again in Parliament? So, for him, the sooner you give it away, the better. Now, you can say, okay, this was Pandit Nehru's view. Now, I want to read to you. Actually, this was not just Pandit Nehru's view. This view continued on to Indira Gandhi ji as well. So, it's very interesting. If one goes through the records of Parliament, we are now looking, I'm fast forwarding it to the time when Katchatheevu agreement is done. There is a member of Parliament called G. Vishwanathan from Tamil Nadu. And he says, this is I'm quoting from Parliament records, we are worried about Diego Garcia, thousands of miles away from Indian territory, but we are not worried about this small island. When we speak of it, the Prime Minister, he is talking about Indira Gandhi ji, the Prime Minister is said to have remarked in the AICC meeting that this is a little rock. I am reminded of those days when Pandit Nehru called about our northern boundary as a place where not a blade of grass grew. I would like to remind the Prime Minister that after this historic statement by Prime Minister Nehru, Pandit Nehru never regained the confidence of the country. This is going to happen to the Prime Minister when she says this is only a little rock and that there is nothing to worry about the territories of our country. So, as you can see, this is not just one Prime Minister, whether it was Pandit Nehru or whether it was Indira Gandhi. This very dismissive attitude, this little rock, this small island of no importance, this was the historic Congress attitude towards Katchatheevu. Now, again, please don't think it's an individual view. This was actually, in a way, had seeped into the party thinking. So I will give you another example of it. Same time, there was a very well-known Congress leader, all of you are familiar with his name, he was from Delhi, called HKL Bhagat. Now, HKL Bhagat is reacting in the same Katchatheevu debate. So he says, and I'm quoting from the parliamentary record, he says, my honorable friend from the DMK was just now talking about Katchatheevu, the island. It appears to me that the DMK thinks that probably they can desperately cling to this issue and survive in Tamil Nadu. The Jaishankar at one time thought they could survive by clinging on to Kutch, but they failed. The DMK is also bound to fail because people of India and the people of Tamil Nadu are mature enough to see that it is in the interests of India, a big and great country, to keep her neighbors, particularly her small neighbors, satisfied. So, please appreciate today how strong, how deep, how pervasive this thinking was. For them sitting in Delhi, this island, this small rock, this island of no importance, this did not matter. It was an inconvenience to be given away so that they, in their minds, could actually get, not just have good relations with a neighbor. They found it irritating, it was coming up in parliament. For them it was a headache. So they saw the territory of India, and when someone says Jaishankar also had the same view, yes, there were parties for whom every millimeter of Indian territory mattered. Apparently there were parties to whom even large tracts of Indian territory, as we saw in Aksai Chin, did not matter. Now, so far, I have spoken about what was the approach of the central government and of the Congress party. But you have to ask yourself, would it have been possible if there was no connivance at the state level? Now, since 1974, we have heard protestations from the state government, then state government, from the DMK. As I pointed out, I get so many letters even now from the Chief Minister of the DMK. So, I want to now turn the focus to the second document of the RTI. This is a document which is a record of a meeting on 19 June 1974, which is held in Fort St. George, the Secretariat, Tamil Nadu Secretariat conference room, where the Foreign Secretary, accompanied by the Director of the Historical Division, he calls on the then Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Kalaignar Karunanidhi, and present there are the Tamil Nadu Chief Secretary, gentleman called P. Sabanayakam, and the Home Secretary, a gentleman called S.P. Ambrose. Now, I want to share with you the relevant part of this, because this will now answer the question, not just the question who did it, but the question who hid it also. After the exchange of courtesies, Foreign Secretary, recalling the talks he had in New Delhi with the Chief Minister in 13th October 1973. So please note, we are talking 19 June 74. So talks have been going on between the Foreign Ministry, Union Government and the Chief Minister from 1973. So recalling 13th October 1973 and with the Chief Minister, Secretary and other officials of Tamil Nadu in Madras on 14th October 1973, before the Indo-Sri Lanka official level talks in Colombo on 15-16 October 1973. So the key point is, 1 year before the Katchatheevu agreement, already then Union government and then state government led by DMK were already, the Chief Minister, up to the level of Chief Minister, were already discussing this agreement, and they are discussing this agreement before they actually go into talks with Sri Lanka. Now then it says, Foreign Secretary said, the purpose was to keep the Tamil Nadu government fully informed. Please note these words, fully informed of the developments in the talks with Sri Lanka and get the benefit of the views and negotiations of the Tamil Nadu, views and suggestions of the Tamil Nadu authorities. So this is actually the truth. The truth is, for a party which has been saying, how was Katchatheevu given away? How was state government not consulted? How could the union government have done this? The fact is that actually there were consultations going on. They were kept fully informed. And please, when you hear the rest of it, you will see that it is much more than this. So I am now reading another part of the document. Foreign Secretary then said that he had the authority of the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister to put forward to the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu for his consideration a compromise proposal which would divide the historic waters in the Park Bay. So here it is. It is not even that they are being informed after the event. They are actually being consulted 1 year ahead. The key proposal is now actually being put forward to the Chief Minister. And the Foreign Secretary then proceeds, the next paragraph will show, he proceeds to explain this in great length. Now, at the end of the conversation, again I am quoting from the document, on the substance of the proposal, the Chief Minister indicated that he was inclined to accept the suggested solution. Then it goes on. The Chief Minister, having once again signified his general acceptance of the suggested solution, said that for obvious political reasons, he could not be expected to take a public stand in favor of it. The Chief Minister, however, assured Foreign Secretary that he will help keep the reaction at a low key and will not allow it to be played up. The Foreign Secretary appreciated this gesture and stressed that nothing should be done to embarrass the central government or turn this affair into an issue between the center and the state. So, the fact is, we know today actually not just who did it, but also who hid it, who were all the parties who were responsible for the 1974 Katchatheevu agreement. Also, how the fishing rights were terminated in 1976. So, if we have today a situation, as I shared with all of you, that in the last 20 years, if 6,184 fishermen were detained, if 1,175 boats were detained, you all know who is responsible. So, for today, it is important for the public to know, it is important for the people to judge. This issue has actually been hidden too long from the gaze of the public. So, we believe today that, at a time when there are big debates and decisions going on in this country, that the full truth on Katchatheevu and on Tamil fishermen's activities and right of living should be placed before the public.